which early on was great and served me for a bit, but it's not something you can do for a lifelong journey. And I know for myself, because of my upbringing, that I'm always going to be working on my mindset, that my mind initially, in my initial reaction, is going to be scared, fear, anything to do with money. And I have to recognize that, be aware of it, and then I continue to change it. For me,
Hello, Angela.
hey, KJ, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. I'm so excited to have you here. I know you have so much experience that would bring so much wisdom to so many people here that follow me. So, if you'd like, you could give an introduction of yourself and let everyone know who you are.
Yeah, so my name is Angela Duncan. I currently host Empower Her Money podcast, where we love talking about money. I love teaching about money. I've been studying finance for over 25 years. I've been a stockbroker. I owned a top real estate office. I've owned an insurance company. I invest in real estate. So I love talking about money.
Wow, that's so many things. I love that because you bring so much experience just having been, you know, in different positions in different parts of your life and working in different aspects of business as well. So, can you explain to me when you say you know all things about money, like what is it that you focus on about money that I guess fuels you with fire? Because I know you said like you want to make a difference and like educate and teach people like versus how we grew up differently, you know what I mean? So, can you explain exactly like what it is that you're focused on?
Yeah. So I think, a lot of times when we find either a passion or purpose, it's coming from somewhere, right? So for me, I grew up, my mom was a single mom for the end part of my childhood. And we lived in Section 8 housing welfare. And she didn't know about money. She didn't know about business. She didn't know about investing. And I shared a room with my little brother. I was on the free lunch program. I took a city bus to school and just couldn't buy clothes and didn't have all those extra things, So I always thought that if we knew more about money, then maybe my lifestyle would have been different. But, God had a different plan for me. And I think he put me through what I endured and just gave me the strength to get through it so that I can empathize. And now that I have, had success in life, I'm really passionate about teaching other women about money because I never want to see another child go through what, I did. And now as a parent, I couldn't imagine, living in a poverty lifestyle and having to bring up children in that poverty lifestyle. So if we can just get the education out there and help women with their own money, then I think we really can make a lifestyle change for many people.
I love that. That's so powerful. That kind of is similar to like my why, like wanting to help others and just make a difference, being able to provide the help that maybe you didn't have growing up. And I think going through that experience, I totally agree with you about why God puts you through what you go through. It's like, why am I going through these things? Why do I have to endure these obstacles? But at the end of the day, if we didn't go through those things, we wouldn't have appreciation and understanding for, appreciating when we do have money or when we do have opportunities. So I love that you brought up God because we're very strong believers and have a strong faith. And so I love that we align in that way as well. But how are you right now helping women exactly? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I sold my last company in February of last year, 2023, and I've taken some time off. And really, I wanted to kind of be alone in my faith and understand what's next for me. And, we can ask those questions, why, right? But when you're in prayer, I ask like, what lesson am I supposed to be learning right now? What is it that you want me to do? And, please provide me with the wisdom and the guidance to carry out that mission. And I kind of had some bucket list items, right? So I like teaching about money. And I was thinking, how do I reach more women? So the first thing I wanted to do was launch the podcast. I know that I have a story and it can resonate with some people, but you and so many other women have incredible stories too. You've learned things in your life about money. It doesn't matter how old you are, you've learned something. So let's share your story and help educate other people. So the podcast platform is incredible because, like on YouTube, right? It's free. We can all access it. We all have phones, so we can just access YouTube and get the information that we need. So that was the first thing. My next was, I thought, well, I can also put it in a book. A book is a great way to leave a legacy, right? You're downloading the information from your brain, you're putting it into a print format, and it's going to be out there forever. So I hired a coach and told him I want to write a book. And he helped me write the book, put it together, put it on Amazon, and it became a bestseller. And so that was a bucket list item for me because that helped me know that I'm helping other people, right? People are buying the book, they're reading the book, and I was getting testimonials from people telling me like, oh, I implemented this, I implemented that. And that's just was so incredible, right? Because you put the information out there and, I kind of hope and pray that somebody's going to find it useful. And when you get the testimonials back saying that they are taking action from your book, like that was so much fun. And now, I get on great platforms like this one and continue to just give practical money tips and wisdom and, inspiration to other people so that hopefully in their lives, they can take one thing away from what they learned, put it into action, and create even a smallest of results, but at least taking action, at least they're moving forward, and at least they're working on themselves. So I think that that's very important too.
That's so cool. So I want to go back to like you wrote a book and it's best-selling. Like how awesome is that? That's so cool. Congratulations to you first off for even like taking the leap. I feel like for me, I would be scared, not knowing where to go, what to say, how to do it. And then the fact that it became a bestseller and now you're actually helping people, that must be such huge fulfillment. What I tell people is like, I went to college and got my degree, but it didn't give me that fulfillment, like closing a deal or doing something that you didn't think you could do was possible and overcoming that. So that's really cool. So if you guys are watching, y'all should go and check out her book. It's called Empower Her Money, correct?
It's called Empower Your Money because it wasn't about me. It was about the readers.
I love that. That's so cool. So could you give us some tips or some points that you're focused on that really make a difference for people that are listening that maybe they could take some action steps on, or like what are the things that have made a difference in your life that you're like, I need to share these things?
Yeah. And invest in yourself first. People sometimes think that if you take time for yourself or you spend money on yourself, that that's a selfish thing. And I believe the opposite. I think if you take care of yourself and invest in your own education first, it's the most unselfish thing you can do because you're creating yourself as a better person. And what you do with that information is you help impact other people. But I can't impact other people if I'm not first educating myself. So I definitely believe in investing in yourself first. And even when people say, I don't really have money, well, like we talked about, YouTube's a free platform. You can get lots of information there. Libraries still exist. You can go to a library and still check out a book for free. I know it's kind of old school, but I love books and I like reading them. So if you don't have the income to be able to do that, then you still don't have an excuse because the library holds it for free and they still get like new books and awesome books that you can read. So take the time to invest in your own education first is my first piece of advice.
I love that. I think that's so important. I think when I started this entrepreneur journey, it was something that friends and family would be like, what are you doing spending that money? What if this, what if that? And I'm like, even if it goes south, I'm learning something either way.
Mm-hmm. Right. And then you can teach someone else the lesson that you learned, whether it's good or bad, it's still a lesson. And you have the ability now to share it with somebody else.
Yeah, I think people see money like they see, instead of seeing it as a tool, they like have this emotional attachment to it and don't want to let it go. They want to save it and hoard it. But it's like, how is that benefiting you if you're not leveling yourself up to have better understanding of just your mindset and the way of life in general and money, so that way you can make more money instead of hoarding. I can't say that word. You know what I mean? Like,
yes. Yeah. That's a great example. And that's why I have this behind me to show people like money is just a tool. It's a piece of paper. It doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care your age, your background, what ethnicity, or male or female. It's just a tool. It's a piece of paper with no emotions. So why are we so emotional about it when it has no emotions towards us? So I like using it as a visual because it is a tool, just like this pen that I'm taking note with. It's just a tool. So how do we best utilize that tool to help our family, ourselves get to where we want to go? And then how do we utilize that tool to help impact other people, right? I often hear people say, oh, I don't need more money. And I think about, I dive deeper into them, especially when they're, faith driven like I am, because I remind them that the church is just like a business. They actually need that tool we call money to operate so that they can make bigger impact too. So the more that I do in my business and the more success I have, the more tools, money I can give to them so that they can continue the mission that I'm just not equipped to do. That's what their gifts are, is to have that mission. And I provide the tool of money to them to help fulfill that as well.
That's cool. Yeah, I like that. So what are some things that you're doing with money? Like, what are some concepts or just some things that may be different than what most people are used to doing?
Yeah, I mean, very similar to you. I still feel like real estate is the best investment in order for us to build real wealth. And it goes back to educating, yourself and finding the right mentors and coaches that are being successful. And one of the things that I challenge people is when they're looking for a coach or a mentor is to ask them about their mistakes. So many times we are excited to tell you how successful we are and all the great things we've done, but ask that coach about their mistakes, because we've all made mistakes. And the coach that's willing to tell you about their mistakes, that's the coach you want to hire, because they're willing to learn from their own mistakes. They're willing to share it with you, to admit that, yes, I have made mistakes in my own career. I've had mistakes cost me 6 figures. And so that's a lot of money. And most people could be embarrassed about it. Sure, I am a little embarrassed about it, right? But at the same time, I think, what lesson did I learn in this? And how can I stop this from happening again to myself? And how can I teach other people so that it doesn't happen to them, right? So ask your coach or mentor about mistakes. And if they're not willing to share, or they say they don't have any, then I would keep looking for a coach, because they're obviously not being as honest as you want them to be, which you need to have in a coach or a mentor.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that's huge. Just making sure that the person you're learning from is humble and has, just the understanding of the importance of mistakes. I mean, I know Joseph and I have lost so much money on, bad mentors from not asking the right questions or investing in things that didn't turn out the way we wanted them to. But I was on the phone with someone the other day, kind of having the same conversation with like what you're saying right now, is like, I could either sit here and be upset and like get caught up on the number that I lost, which is probably going to create a scarcity mindset, and it's going to cause like just a bunch of like weight on my shoulders. Or I can look at it as God's going to continue to provide. He puts me through everything for a reason, right? Like, what is it that I'm supposed to learn here? And I'm like, okay, well, if I didn't go through this, I wouldn't know to ask people these certain questions, or I wouldn't know to avoid certain things and stuff like that. So I think your mindset, shifting it in situations like that, is so huge when you are dealing with money and investing and just anything in life, honestly.
Yeah, agree 100%.
Yeah. So how would you say like your mindset is? How has it changed? Like, what did you do to change your mindset? I'm sure you did like educating and investing in yourself, but is there any specific books or people that taught you specific lessons that like really turned that light bulb on?
Yeah, I mean, growing up in poverty, it's very easy to have a scarcity mindset, right? I was running away from the fear of being poor instead of thinking in abundance, which early on was great and served me for a bit, but it's not something you can do for a lifelong journey. And I know for myself, because of my upbringing, that I'm always going to be working on my mindset. That my mind initially, in my initial reaction, is going to be scared, fear, anything to do with money. And I have to recognize that, be aware of it, and then I continue to change it. For me, Tony Robbins was huge, especially early in my career. He talks a lot about how you speak to yourself, the words that you use to your own self are extremely powerful. So you need to be very aware and conscious about how you speak to yourself, right? Like, I can't do this. That's not going to happen. I don't deserve that. Those are all very negative words. And the mind is powerful. So when you give it instructions to say, I can't do something, you've already shut it down. So it's learning how to change that internal conversation so that when that initial reaction happens and you feel it, you become aware and you recognize it, then you can tell yourself, that's not the truth. That is a lie, and this is my story today. Because only you can change your story. The only way that your brain can understand what you're saying is coming from you. It has to come from you. So you can hear it from other people, but until you internalize it and say it to yourself, you're not going to change the brain psychology. And if you study anything like NLP or any of that training, you'll understand a lot more about that. I'm not an expert in that field, but I have been through therapy and coaches and mentors my entire life. And I know for myself, I will always have that type of coach or therapy in my life because I'm continually working on my own mindset.
I love that. I went through coaching as well for I think it's the internal family system or something like that, where it kind of circles back to like your childhood and how like subconsciously like the different versions of yourself when you were younger are trying to protect you. So they don't understand that like you're safe right now. They're just like, oh, alert, alert. This is uncomfortable. Like sabotage everything. So I think it's super important to become self-aware. And I didn't even know that was like running my system or controlling my thoughts. And I think it's such a life hack, kind of like you're waking up from the matrix when you get someone to help you and see your blind spots and kind of have a different perspective. Because I don't know, like, do you agree or disagree that like you wouldn't be aware of certain things if you didn't have like someone with an outside perspective to kind of point things out or kind of guide you?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when it comes to the subconscious mind. You don't know that those thoughts are occurring until someone else helps brings those out. Now, I mean, we are, God created us with fear. We're supposed to have fear. Otherwise, we would walk in front of a car because we wouldn't fear getting hurt, right? So some levels of fear do exist and are important for us in helping us to stay alive and continue our mission. But yeah, those subconscious thoughts that you're not aware of that are affecting your decisions every day, you need to have a professional help you get through that so that you can understand what those are, because you can't change thoughts if you don't really know that they exist.
Yep, I love that. That's so cool. And I think being in this space that we're in the real estate space, I think you deal with a lot of people who are more self aware and more open to learning these kinds of concepts and learning about themselves. Because I've noticed that a lot of people that aren't in the space that maybe I grew up with or used to work with at a restaurant or wherever, it's like I see sometimes them stuck. And I think when you get coaching and your mind opens, then you could see people in a different light as well.
Yep.
I
And
go ahead.
I was going to say, and also, we're both moms. And when you're seeking out mentors and coaches, as a woman, we don't like to ask for help, but we definitely will offer help. So don't be afraid to ask for help, because if you see someone and they look like they're doing really good and you want to learn more about what they do, ask them some questions. Hey, can I have 5 minutes of your time and ask some questions? And I think most people would be surprised on how many of us say yes and how many of us are more than willing to share, and answer questions and share our experiences and what we've learned and help teach other people. But it comes back to the person. If they don't first take that initiative and ask those questions, then the answer is always no.
My motto is the worst you could be told is no, so might as well ask.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, so that gives me motivation just to ask for things all the time. And it's crazy how the amount of things that I'll get because I do that. So don't be afraid to ask for help. But I kind of want to take this and turn to you being a speaker. Like, what does that look like? How did you get there? Your feelings about doing it, just all of it. Because what I want to become a speaker, and it's something that I'm like having imposter syndrome on. So I'm sure you've had these same feelings. So I'd love to hear more about like your experience.
Yeah, and this might shock you actually. So I'm 45, and up until having the podcast, I didn't do any public speaking. So that was last year. I've only truly been doing public speaking for a little over a year. And not that I by any means I'm an expert. I've always had stage fright. And in my previous careers, I've been behind the scenes. And the language, like I said, the language that you talk to yourself is so powerful. I used to tell myself that I didn't want to be in front of the camera, that I was better behind the camera. I'm a better operations and systems person. Like, nobody wants to listen to me. My role, my job is behind the camera. And so I allowed other people to be in front of the camera and to share their stories and to teach. And when I launched my podcast, I mean, it's much easier, obviously, to sit here and speak to a camera than a live audience. But people would tell me that they were learning something. And, when I was sitting in prayer and just asking for the guidance and what I'm supposed to be doing, that kind of occurred to me that I need to be in front of the camera. The only way to really provide all the information to as many people as possible is to be on a stage where people are going to be. And if someone is willing to allow me to have that platform, then it's my responsibility to deliver the best possible speech that I can do in that moment for those people who are giving me their time. So public speaking is not natural for me by any means. And I still get super nervous, and I'm not perfect, and I'm going to continue to work on this skill. But I've only been doing it for a year. So if someone's listening and they're like, oh, I could never public speak, I used to say that to myself. So I challenge you to change that story and stop telling yourself that.
That's cool. I feel the same way. Like, when we started recording our journey, it was so uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. I felt so weird. I was like, ew, like, I'm looking at the camera and I'm live right now and people are watching and I don't know what to say. And so I've come a long way just doing the podcast. And so I feel like it's a whole nother level to do public speaking. So what was your first public speaking gig? How did you get it? Like, how did people find you and stuff like that? Were you reaching out looking for opportunities, or were people coming to you? Like, what did that look like?
I started to let people know that I am a speaker. I think when you tell people you're a speaker and they have an event, they're like, oh, I need a speaker for my event. So one of my first speaking engagements that I was paid for, I was in front of a networking group. And every time that they met, once a month, they had a different speaker come in. And so I got to the venue, I had prepped my speech. We had already talked about what I was going to talk about. I love talking about money. So I had some great ideas for the audience because I did my research to figure out, who the people were going to be in the audience. And when I'm in that speaker role, I'm focused on how I can help you as the audience, right? And so I'm sitting there and the person that I've been coordinating with comes out and she's like, I have this idea. I think you should talk about this. And I froze because I hadn't practiced that. That wasn't that wasn't my area of expertise. And so looking back at it, I should have just said, look, this is my area of expertise. This is what I'm going to teach your audience, and just give me the opportunity to show you how I can help them, right? Instead, I said yes, and I started speaking about this topic, completely off topic for me. I mean, I'm a money person. I'm not a marketing person by any means. And I stopped for a second because I could see that the audience wasn't really engaging because I wasn't the expert. I'm teaching something I don't really know much about. So I stopped for a second and I asked the audience, I was like, I love talking about money. I have a podcast. I'm a speaker. I'm an author. What do you want to know more about in your business? What are you struggling with right now in your business? And we started talking about podcasts. And I could talk about podcasts all day long. So I got allowed for the audience to be more engaging and ask me questions that they needed to know instead of me just speaking at them, and totally shifted that speech from this marketing or what I can do better for clients in marketing to podcasting, because that's what they wanted to hear. So I shifted my whole speech and I just focused on their questions. And at the end, we ended up going way over the hour that I was allotted. And I had people coming up to me afterwards to take photos and ask questions. And that validated, my shift, because at first I thought, if I don't shift, this is going to be awful for them. And I don't want them to walk away thinking this is awful. So I had to, in the moment, make a quick decision, change it, and then just hope for the best. And thankfully, it worked out very well. But you got to pay attention to your audience, because if you're not delivering value, you're going to watch them and you're going to see it in their body language.
Yeah, that's good. I bet that was a scary moment to make that decision, because it's like, this lady asked me to speak about this. Do I go against what she said and do what my gut's telling me? So that's cool that it ended up working out so much better just by following what you felt was right. And I don't know, that was cool to hear about that, because I feel I would be, I don't know, I guess worried, like,
Mhm.
oh, are they going to get upset? And then also, like, I think my fear is also dealing with a crowd that, like, is like, I don't want to listen to you.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
Well, it was like, am I disappointing one or am I disappointing the rest? And so, I went with the value, and if I never got hired again, then that's the risk I was taking.
yeah, yeah, that's fun. Have you ever had a speaking moment where you did feel like, okay, these people are like confused or don't understand, or like, you're like, how do I pivot?
Yeah, I mean, that would have been that instance. But if you are a speaker, pay attention to the audience. Sometimes people are like, oh, look over their heads or think of them, naked or what. I can't do that. If I did that, I would be cracking up the whole time. So I want to pay attention to the audience, make eye contact with them, because then I can see which direction. Sometimes, you've got to be able to adjust a little bit. I know that's very scary in the moment, but if you know your topic, then you can pivot.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer. I'd love for you, like, if you have any shameless plugs, anything you'd like for people to connect to or follow or anything like that. Like, if you want to go ahead and share with the audience about that, I'd love that.
Awesome. Thanks, KJ. So I'm on Instagram, Empower Her Money. I'm on YouTube, Empower Her Money. And I would love for you to follow my podcast, Empower Her Money. And just if you have any questions, message me. I check my own messages on Instagram. And if you have a money question, I'm more than happy to answer it for you.
And also her book, Empower Your Money.
Yes, definitely. It's on Amazon and available. And if you download the Kindle, it's only $1.99. So I'm keeping it as, inexpensive as possible so we can reach more people.
Yes, we got to support other ladies. We got to make sure that we are supporting each other and helping each other's business. So I'm super, super thankful that you came on and took time out of your day to share about your experience and everything that you've got going on. I really appreciate it. And I know the audience is going to get so much value from you. Please make sure that you guys go and follow her, shout her out, like her stuff. We want to make sure that we're supporting each other. But other than that, I don't have anything else unless you have anything.
No, like you said, keep supporting each other. Let's grow, let's teach, and let's give back. Make that impact, because that's why God has us here.
Amazing. Great way to end it. Awesome. All right, well, I'll do the outro and then we'll see you around. Bye everyone.
Thank you for listening to Empower Her Money podcast. I am grateful for you. Please make sure to leave us a 5-star review, like this podcast, share it, subscribe, and let's keep teaching others how to take control and be empowered with their finances.